Choice paralysis. There's so much content out there and so many apps and websites to help you learn a different language. Where do you even start? So in this video, I'm going to cover that. Practical tips on how you can integrate language learning into your lifestyle right now. And the first point is little and often. Little and often is better than an hour or 2 hours once a week. Your mind has to adapt to the new language that you're learning. So what are examples of practical steps from myself to help you integrate language learning into your lifestyle every day? Well, if you look at how your day is set up, your routine, you wake up, you go and do your teeth, you get ready, you have a shower, and then maybe you have a commute into work. What I'm getting to here is passive listening matters massively, especially if it's in a subject that you care about. If you're learning, for example, Spanish or Italian, or well, any language for that matter, if you have something like a podcast in a topic you're interested in and it's purely spoken in your target language, so in Spanish or Italian, then that will help you. An example for myself is when I'm on my commute into the gym or to work, what I would do is I'd listen to a podcast on Spotify. And that podcast is called Easy Italian, or Italian Made Easy. I will put a link to this video below, but basically it's a podcast made for people who aren't Italian and who are learning Italian, and it's completely spoken in Italian, and it's a bit slower than normal native speakers. So if you're early on, you're starting out, what you can do is put the speed to like 0.8 times, but most importantly, there's a lot of topics on that podcast. There's like fitness, there's spas, there's health and well-being, there's cooking, and there's a lot of different topics for you to listen to. And each podcast is around between 10 and 20 minutes long. So essentially, if you're on a commute to work, or you're driving, or you're on the metro or something, or you're on public transport, if you can passively listen to this podcast, then that's ideal. Actually, if you literally passively listen to it, and you understand 10% of what they're saying, that's perfect. That's better than nothing. Because some of these words, your mind will get used to it, and that's how you integrate it, in that sense, into your life. So it depends what your goals are, but if my goal was to be conversational, which a lot of the target market, the audience on this channel, that's who my target audience is. So if you're looking to have conversations with native speakers, then that's perfect to get your ears used to listening. On that note, I mentioned multitasking in a sense. So while you're driving, or while you're on public transport or commuting to your work, multitasking, or even in the shower, if you listen to a podcast in your spare time doing this, that helps massively. It helps more than you would think so, because the amount of times that we do that per day and per week, if you're commuting for say half an hour to your office or to your workplace, and you do that twice a day, that's 1 hour per day. And if you do that 5 days a week, that's 5 hours per week that you're listening to that, to the sound and the rhythm, and you're picking up different words in your target language every single week. And add up the weeks and it adds up massively. And that's passive listening. So that means that your brain will be more familiar with the words that you're hearing, and next time you want to have a conversation with a native speaker, you'll have heard the word, you'll have heard a lot of frequent words that are used more commonly in that language, and that will help you massively. So my advice would be here, try and integrate it into your lifestyle and make use of passive learning in the times at which you're not focusing on anything in particular, like if you're having a shower. The only issue I would say here is if you're used to listening to something, to music, and it doesn't feel as good listening to a podcast, if you give yourself a sort of a get out of jail free card for 1 day, so if you allow yourself to not listen to that podcast for 1 day, if you're super bored or you're tired or you just can't be bothered and you'd rather listen to music and feel good about that, have a pass for 1 day per week. That's allowed. Essentially, that's the same way as if you're going to the gym and you allow yourself to not do it for a day, or not do it for a certain workout because you don't feel quite good, but then the next day get back onto it. The purpose of this is from the book Atomic Habits, whereby you can miss 1 day mentally, and your self-story that you tell yourself, like normally your self-story would be, I'm not the sort of person who would miss a day of training or miss a day of learning for this. However, if you're that rigid, then it can be easy to not follow that exact mentality every single time. So give yourself space for a slight bit of flexibility, in the sense that I can miss 1 day and continue the day after and I'll be fine. I'll continue on my language learning journey. The risk is that you miss 1 day and then after that point you just give it up. You think, oh, it's not for me, it's not working, I'll just leave it. So that's why it's important to pick a topic that you're interested in, to keep the motivation there, because at least your interest will be there whether or not you like or you feel like learning the language that day. The next point I want to mention is a massive point when it comes to language learning. The point is, there is so much content out there, so many apps and so many websites and different channels and everything to learn your target language. Where do you even start? And how do you select which ones to stick to? It can be easy to procrastinate. Procrastination is the main word here. When there's too many options available to us, and there's a lot of content, YouTube, Spotify, you've got books, you've got so many apps, you've got Duolingo, Memrise, Babbel, italki, all of these things. Where do you start, and how do you know which one is best? As humans, we like to put the minimal effort to get the maximum reward, and that's nature. In a sense, when we were many years ago, when we were adapting to things, we used to have to run after our prey, and essentially we didn't want to run any more than we wanted to, because we have a finite amount of resources, so whether it's energy or concentration, and we want to maximize the result we get from that limited resource. So when it comes to hunting down prey, we want to maximize the amount, want to get the prey in the shortest amount of time and with the least effort, essentially, and we want to catch that prey like that because it helps us survive. However, mentally, back to the point, with language learning, your mind wants to learn the language the fastest without you having to put that much effort into it. That is something called choice paralysis, where you have too many choices and it takes too much effort to work out what choice is best for you based on the value you get from that choice and also the cost of doing that thing compared to something else. We only have a limited amount of time and effort in our minds available, and we want to pick something that's right, and with so many choices, it takes a lot of time to analyse everything that's available to us, and that is it's a blessing and a curse of the internet nowadays, where you can find so much content on YouTube, but you might relate to this. You go onto a YouTube channel to learn Italian or Spanish, you watch a video that's 20 minutes, you watch it, you finish it, and you go off, and you don't watch that again or anything else for another week or something. That isn't language learning. It feels good because it feels like you're getting a little bit closer to your goals. It feels like you're progressing because you're doing something towards your language goals. However, it needs to be more consistent and more integrated into your life to be that. It has to be that you're still exposing your mind to the language even when you can't be bothered, or even when you're not actively thinking about it. And that's how it should be. So to the extent that you're learning the language even when you're not actively trying to. So on that point, limit yourself. Figure out what you enjoy doing. If, for example, you enjoy watching YouTube videos, that's perfect. If you like watching people being interviewed on the street to learn Spanish, that's perfect. Go for that. Just try and make it consistent. If you're on YouTube anyway, a few times per week, then switch out what you're doing already, watching videos, to videos of language that you're learning. And that way, you won't notice that much of a difference. When it comes to picking what language app to use, pick one that you resonate with and that works for you. If you found that you enjoy doing something, then keep on doing it. After a few weeks, however, you might get bored of it, but that's the point. The point of discipline is you keep yourself stuck to that thing, that app or that platform, and you don't diverse from it too much, because that's where you need consistency. Because if you know that that's working and you can gradually feel you're getting better over time, then keep at it. It's very hard, it's very easy to switch and look at something new and, oh, let's try that. So that's my recommendation. Try and limit yourself so that you've not got choice paralysis, and that you pick a few things that work for you, something that helps you to listen to language, so maybe a podcast, something that is relatable, so maybe on the street, there's an interviewer asking people questions about what they think about their local town or something in Italy or Spain. That can be useful, because if you like travelling, that can be useful for like travel advice for you. So I hope those were practical tips that helped you. Essentially, the key is to integrate it into your lifestyle to the point where you can do that for a long period of time, maybe three months as a minimum really, to get to a conversational level. And as you're doing that, you'll progress over time. You won't necessarily notice progressions you have. It won't be that obvious to you. It'll be very subtle over time. You'll just notice that you're able to say things in a better way, or a bit quicker than you could do beforehand. So be patient with yourself and make it so that it's as fun as it can be, but also understand that it's not constantly fun all the time. Language learning isn't always fun. It's one of these things where it takes a long time to sort of build up a baseline, the fundamentals of understanding a different language and being able to speak it and getting the pronunciation right. But once you get there to a certain level, it becomes so much more fun, because you can have a conversation with a native speaker and be understood, and from that point it's exponential. The growth of your progress massively increases because you're able to completely converse in the target language Albeit with mistakes, you'll have mistakes still, but you'll be able to have a conversation, and that will massively help your motivation because you'll feel progress. You'll feel like you're talking with a native speaker, and that's perfect. That's your aiming point. Not perfection, but for conversation level. That's the idea. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to leave a comment, and see you later.